YouTube? This is Charlie426, and today we have the review of the P-Bandai exclusive, or P-Bandai exclusive, Gundam Heavyarms EW Igel unit. So this is basically the novel version. I believe this is actually from the Frozen Teardrop novel, or manga. I'm not sure which one actually exists, but I do know that there's a novel out there, and this is one of those variants within that novel, as far as I know. So basically, I believe this is the second version, the second Premium Bandai version of the Heavyarms, and basically this one it has extra equipment all over the place. Instead of becoming an entirely new mobile suit, this one has extra missile containers on those shoulders, and then we have extra tank treads, and then yeah, there's and more smaller missile containers on the legs. So in this review, I will show some articulation, but I'm not going to be too focused on the articulation because I believe this kit has been reviewed like a bunch of times, so I think like I don't need to go over articulation too much because I think at this point a lot of people should have this kit. A lot of people should, the base kit, and should know like how the EW kits work at this point. Okay, so let's talk about components. So first of all, what you get, of course, is obviously the mobile suit, and then as I mentioned, we get these extra missile containers on the side of the shoulders, on the legs, and then those extra tank treads on the back of the legs. So those are the extra stuff. And so yeah, and let's talk about what you're supposed to get other than that. So in terms of hands, currently on the right hand, I'm using the fist, and on the left hand, I'm using the weapon connecting hand, which means that it looks like a let's see, like this one, it looks like a multi-purpose hand, but inside there's actually a peg. So that's the one I'm using on the left side. And then here we have some multi-purpose hands. Oops. So we have two sets. A set, so meaning that's red for left and right. And then we got a fist. As I mentioned, I'm using this on the right hand, so no need to worry about that. So we get a set. And then we get a set of open hands, once again, meant for posing. And then we get a action-based connector. I'm just throwing everything up, am I? Okay, so we have an action-based connector, nothing too special going on. And then here we have the shield. Now, the shield, it can be used, but I feel like there's some, it's kind of tricky to, not tricky, but it just doesn't feel right if you connect it with all the stuff on. I'll get into that later. And then we get the knife for the, well, technically this would be for the right arm, but with the hole you are able to connect it in either arm. Same goes for the shield. You can actually connect this to the arm as well. Yeah, and I thought this would come in a more lighter gray, but they just decided to go in a darker gray, so I guess I just mistaken for that. And then for this, I'm not sure this should be considered a leftover part, but they actually do give you the arm for the beam saber storage. So for those who haven't seen Wing Gundam series yet, I forgot which episode, but there's this episode where Hiro Yui borrows Troa's Heavyarms Gundam and fights the Tallgeese, but Hiro was not used to using the Heavyarms Gundam because if you have the Gatling gun on the left arm, it becomes extremely heavy. So Hiro Yui, he wasn't able to actually lift it up. So what Troa did was that he detached the actual left arm and then replaced it with this, and yeah, and despite detaching the left arm, because in the anime, this is not how the Gatling gun works. The Gatling gun would actually attach, not as a handle, but actually would cover up the entire arm like an extension. So which is why this was able to be used. But this one does not make any sense because this Gatling gun requires to hold an actual handle. So to have this arm on the left arm does not make any sense at all, unless the Heavyarms or the Gundams itself can actually somehow can cover up this part with the entire arm, and then also just detach or eject the arm and then take this out. But unless that's possible, this really does not make any sense. So I don't know, if they actually make the anime version of the Heavyarms Gundam, I would definitely like to have this. But I would like to mention, they do give you the beam saber hilt, but they do not give you the beam saber effect part. I believe this is the same for the for the robot Damashi. Yeah, they don't actually give you the beam saber part. They tell you to use the one from the Wing Gundam, because I believe the beam saber is actually from the Wing Gundam. Okay, and let's talk about leftover parts. Well, actually, before leftover parts, here we have a small pirate figurine of Troa, so nothing too special. Here we have a sticker sheet, nothing too big. We have the eyes and the head cameras for front and back. So currently, you can see these are stickers I haven't used because the head part uses a clear piece, so I decided to just use a metallic green Gundam marker to color them up instead of using a sticker because I feel like covering up clear parts is always a waste. And then, okay, now we're going to go with the water slides. Because, yeah, being a P-Bandai exclusive, we get some water slides. Nothing too special. A lot of red marks. Nothing, and yeah, most of these marks are just pretty much like warning labels and such. Nothing too special. Nothing, there's no numbers or no specific symbols. Okay, and then here we have a leftover part, which I'm not too sure where this is from, because as far as I know, I'm not sure about the Wing Gundam, but the rest of the Gundams, they share like the same inner frame parts, so I wasn't expecting to see a leftover piece of an inner frame, or this looks like it, but yeah, we have this leftover piece for some reason. And then here we have these four pieces. Now these four pieces would, if you're building the normal version, you would be using these, but these are the piece that goes on the side of the feet, on the ankle guards right around here. But since you need to connect those tank treads on the back of the legs, you don't actually cover them up. You actually use those pegs for connection. So these are, which is why we have these leftover pieces. So yeah, just wanted to tell you that. And then here's some more extra stuff that I didn't cut off. There's not much. This is one of those Pre-Bandai kits that doesn't come with too many leftover pieces. So I believe this was the polycap plate. We have two leftover polycaps, nothing too special. And then finally we have this one. I believe the ones you see here are the original containers that goes on the legs, or the missile launchers. Because the way how the ones that you see on here are built a little bit differently, which is why we have these leftover pieces. I believe the pieces that they use inside are the same, and the latches. It's just that the way how it's structured is just different. Okay, now let's get on to the review. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to be focusing on too much on articulation because once again, the base build of the kit is exactly the same as the normal version, so there's no change in articulation whatsoever. It's just that it gets hindered by a few aspects or something like that. So I'm gonna stop rotating and let's get on to the review. Okay, so let's talk about the equipment. So the Igel, then there's one part that I would like to talk about because the more you see it, it doesn't really make any sense. But yeah. Okay, let me just get this ready. Okay, so here we have the Igel equipment version. So as I mentioned, the base kit, the heavy arms itself is exactly the same from top to bottom. The only changes is within the shoulders and then on the missile containers and the back of the legs, or technically it would be feet because this thing is actually connected to the feet when you think about it. Okay, so number one, so let's talk about the Igel equipment, the most obvious one that's on the shoulders. So these ones are pretty simple. You can actually detach them pretty easily. They detach, and then the way how you connect them is that when you're building the shoulder, you have this gray piece, and the way how this connects is that if you build the normal one, you would have like an edge, like a normal edge here, and you just need to connect this piece left and right, snap it together, and this holds into place. So for example, if you have the manual, the normal original shoulder would look like these. You have these tabs here. Yeah, this is where you connect that connector as well. And I would like to mention, we might actually get another version of the heavy arms, or we might get an actual add-on, because as you can see, the only pegs you're using are the ones on the side. So these are the main ones that you connect the container. And there's this top peg right over here that you don't actually use, so I feel like we might see another equipment variant, because if I remember correctly, someone pointed me out this on Facebook where it doesn't actually, the Igel equipment doesn't use that equipment, but it's just the heavy arms itself. There's this other equipment, I forgot the name, but it's basically two big giant propellers that goes on top of the heavy arms, and then it makes it fly around. So yeah, we might get another version of that as well. So let's talk about the container itself. I'll show you guys the poses at the end. So here we have the container. So the way how this works, there's 4 sections that opens up. The front, well, yeah, if you look at it, yeah, the front, the back, and then the side. So opening the front sides and back side are kind of tricky. So you can open these, and each container or each slot has 4 micro missiles or mini missiles or whatever they call it. I know they're not grenades, that's for sure. So they open up like this, and then on the side, you can open everything up. So each section has 4, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12. So that's 48 missiles in one section. Of course, I'm pretty sure there should be like another, like, I don't know, maybe another batch behind them. So maybe if there is a second batch, then times 2, that would be 96. If there's a third batch, then that would make it 144. So either way, it's a big container that contains a good amount of missiles, and I do like the way how this works. So one thing I would like to mention is that there is one issue that happens if you have these things on. So we have this on this side. So opening the containers, no problem. Opening the front section, no problem. But when you're trying, there's no reason or there's no way to actually open the back section, because unlike the front that flips up, this one on the back, for those who know, it just has to slide open to the side. So it kind of blocks it. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to. So yeah, I mean, this is the best I could do. So in the game, the way how this works is that he would fire everything that's inside the containers and then detach or eject them. Then I guess you are able to do this, but that's, well, I believe in the game this part also ejects as well. So then that would be pretty much the case solved. But yeah, so that's one limitations that you might have. And then limitation number 2. Okay, I'm gonna reattach this. This thing attached pretty simple attachment, and it stays there. It's a firm connection. Number 2. So if you have the knife connection here, wait, that's not the way. Okay, if you have the knife connection, you can see I'm trying to even connect it, but it's already getting hindered on the process. So like you have to do something like this. Either way, but even though I do get the knife connection, it's just gonna be like this, so you have to like have it always out or something like that. But of course, I believe this is also not the correct position. I believe in the original anime, instead of it on the side, it would be actually below here, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I think this might be a error. I mean, this might be a error from the Alex syndrome, or someone or the designer kind of misunderstood the concept, or not the concept, but it's just a slight error or something like that. Unless, yeah, I mean, this version already had it on the side. So either way, my point is that if you have the equipment here, having the knife is going to be very bothersome on the arm. So, which is why I took it off. And I believe on the manual, even the manual that shows you how to build the Igel equipment, when you see it, it doesn't actually have the knife here. So yeah. Of course, if you play the game, I believe it actually has the knife, because there's actually a attack option for the knife as well. Number 2. Now regarding the shield, now I'm not sure how everybody else did it, but so you have 2 options to hold the shield. Technically, for the original, so for me, I usually prefer to have it on the Gatling gun, because that's how it was in the original anime. But of course, once again, depending on the angle, it may collide with the actual arm a little bit, and then it doesn't go in fully. But I think I can fix that by repositioning the Gatling gun and such. But once again, the peg doesn't really go in entirely, so which I find it a little bit odd. And then it goes into the arm with no problem as well. But yeah, sure. I mean, on the right arm, no problem at all. But because of the Gatling gun on the left arm, that has to be constantly onto the side. Like, yeah, it's already colliding with the top section of the shoulder. So once again, kind of a bothersome. And I would just like to mention, like, on the manual for the original Heavyarms, the way how it's holding it. So the shield is on the bottom, meaning that the thing is actually holding the Gatling gun with that's not the main trigger. That should be just the handle without a trigger. So that does not make any sense as well. Or at least for me. So if there's a better explanation, be my guest. Okay, other than that, once again, there's no big issues. Like, you still have the opening Gatling gun sections, and those blue sections are all color separated pieces. We have a opening cockpit. We have these missile sections here on the front skirt. Very nice touch. And then they do have this small locking mechanism where I think you need to push it down for them to not open. I believe the ones that are on the back, oops, yeah, on the back don't open as well. I mean, I guess it wouldn't make sense, because unless well, technically, yeah. My question is, like, okay, so we have these missiles on the back. If they are on the back, so are they programmed to, like, go forward, like, after being fired? That'd be interesting. But either way, yeah, the ones on the back skirt don't open at all. And another missile container is on the side skirt. I believe you just need to open this up like this, in this style. So this section, no problem. Opening the other side, you can see there's going to be a problem with that. I mean, not a big problem. You can just move the arm a little bit, and then you're good to go. And then, unlike the original version, like in the anime, this one actually has like chain belt connecting to a container, so that's one different thing as well. I mean, I'm glad that at least the length is enough, because sometimes, like, if you get wires, they sometimes give you like a very, like, you have to use the exact amount or you're screwed. Okay, and then the articulations on the legs are pretty much the same. The front skirt, since the front skirt do move and the back skirt do move as well, you have a good amount of range of movement. Of course, because of the extra tank treads, you can't do a full double bend because they get in the way. So that's one thing. But you still have a nice side swivel, and then it can go to the side. It is able to go to the side, I believe. But once again, these are the master grade style connections, so they're pretty stiff. So if you don't force it, you might actually, if you might break it by accident. The arms are okay. I mean, I thought they would bend more, but yeah, this is as far as they go. And once again, because of how the shoulder works, it's kind of tricky to go to the side 90 degrees. And because with everything on the back, of course, this arm is going to be tricky. Going 360 on the arm is going to be tricky as well. Okay, now for the legs, the extra part for the missile containers are on the legs. So this is how it works. So as I mentioned, these are entirely different builds, because the leftover piece shows, because this thing is entirely one piece, while the leftover parts from the original one would be that you have the top section, and then you have the bottom section, and then you would slide them in to connect them. The main reason why they changed this is that because we have an extra container here that opens up to the side. Once again, opens up to the side, and then you can open all these missiles up. Very nice touch, if you ask me. And then we have all these missiles. Because if you have them separately, I guess it would be a problem for this thing to connect. Yeah, I think, well, basically there's these two pegs on the side, so yeah. And I believe the original ones don't actually have those pegs, so which is why they had to change the design for this one. But the connecting way is pretty much the same, because we have this peg and then we have a hole on the leg. Not rocket science. Okay, now let's talk about the tank treads. I feel like, I mean, they're cool, but in kit-wise, I don't think they work that well, or too well. So the way how this works is, number one is, I'm going to talk about the connection. So as I mentioned, for the ankle guards, technically those 4 leftover pieces, you'll be using it here to cover up like those round sections with the pegs. But for this one, you actually use those pegs for the connecting this green section right over here on the back of the leg. So this big giant L shape. So each side is connected and then the tank treads can move up and down or extend here, because you can see there's a peg here in the hole. So this one is the way how you lock it into place, like this. So that's how it's stored. You pull it out and then you extend this tank tread and then pull it down. And then yeah, you just reposition it. So number one, the first connection here, or the connector, is on the peg, so you can rotate them around. And then you have this another connection here, which allows you to move up and down. And then the inside, there's that you connect it with a circular piece in a space, which is why you can also rotate this around for your usage, or depending on the situation of the mold suit. And there you go. And then you actually have treads, but these things do not move at all. So yeah, the only time I actually seen moving treads on a mold suit was the Master Grade gun tank, I believe. But yeah, moving that thing itself is a whole different story. But yeah, you get my point. So yeah, you can put them on the ground, but that's pretty much it. But depending on like how you position, oops, sorry about that. And depending on how you position the legs, it can get pretty messy time to time. But it's good to know that it does actually have a wide range of movement, and they're not entirely wobbly, so you can just store them back in the legs. So that's one good thing about it. Yeah, and okay, and then another thing is that, yeah. Actually, yeah, I'll be right back to show you guys this one situation. So yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So basically, I'm back from opening everything I could, except for the left side skirt, because yeah, that thing has always been a problem for me, because it keeps colliding with the machine gun, and getting the machine gun onto the hand was also a whole chore for me as well. And there's some stuff that I haven't mentioned, but basically you can also attach the Gatling gun to the backpack. But once again, I'm pretty sure a lot of YouTubers have already cover that out. So for me, the main focus on this review is pretty much the Igel equipment itself, and then after attaching the Igel equipment, what becomes like an issue, or there are some or any changes that you should know about. So I've opened up everything. The hatches on the legs, they work pretty well. They don't actually collide with each other. I mean, they technically do, but to the point where they don't actually get in the way of the missiles itself. And yeah, at least these containers don't have one on the back, so this is no problem. And they did a pretty good job in not colliding with each other. But when it comes to the top section, there's some parts that you need to be aware of. So if you're opening everything in just to make, like for those who are doing dioramas or just trying to make sense, don't open the chest compartment entirely like that, because if you do, that means you're colliding with the missiles. So you have to open like maybe a little bit less, or at least it doesn't, to the point where it doesn't collide with any missiles. Number two, as you can see on the Igel equipment section, you can see I have opened these hatches entirely full, which means that the green sections are actually also blocking some of the missiles, so you have to only open them maybe, I think it really depends, but I think in the game they only open up to this section, so only opens up to 90 degrees, which would make sense. And once again, same goes for here. If you open the side ones entirely like that, then you're also blocking 2 missiles at each. So once again, this should be only opened up 90 degrees as well to make sense. And as I mentioned, because if you have the Igel equipment on, you cannot open up the ones on the back. So yeah, that's one limitation regarding that. But still, I say you have enough missiles. So that's pretty much it that I wanted to talk about. So while there's more weapons or more missiles, to be more specific, there are some parts that you need to be aware of, such as like having more limitations on attaching the knife. You cannot open the back section over here, and maybe moving the arm becomes a little bit more trickier than usual. And also, once again, I guess if you're having balance issues, these treads do help out a little bit as well. Anyway, that was pretty much it. So once again, I'm sorry that I didn't go over articulation, but for me, I felt like the Igel equipment for stuff like these, I think it's better to talk about the equipment itself more than the actual kit, because yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching the review. This was the review of the P-Bandai exclusive or P-Bandai exclusive Master Grade Gundam Heavyarms Igel equipment. If you guys got any questions or requests, leave a comment below. I still have more stuff to buy and build and make reviews out of, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time!